All right. We're back here at Song of the Day, coming to you from the Rock Cave. Hope you're all doing well today, as usual. I'm your host, Mark Pierce. Today is Tuesday, June 9th. Before we get started with today's Song of the Day, which I had already planned out, we did have some news late yesterday that Bonnie Pointer of the Pointer Sisters died yesterday at age 69. Got me thinking about the Pointer Sisters. Everyone remembers the Pointer Sisters, right? How many sisters were there? Does anyone know? Well, it turns out there were four of them. First, it started in '69 with June and Bonnie. Then the third sister, Anita, joined, and then Ruth in '72, and then Bonnie left in '78. The majority of their hits came after that, '78 to '85. But we all remember their songs, right? Anyone that was listening to pop music in the '80s, Jump, Automatic, He's So Shy, Slow Hand. Slow Hand is a great song. Neutron Dance, which was from Beverly Hills Cop, right? As a kid, I remember the song Should I Do It. I don't know if it wasn't much of a hit, but it was kind of like, the reason why I liked it is because it was like a doo-wop song. And then, of course, Fire, the remake written by Bruce Springsteen, but not a hit by Bruce. But that was a top hit for them some years after he had recorded that and released that. So anyway, I got to thinking about that. So what are we doing today, though? Today, June 9th, in history, we're going back to 1978. The Rolling Stones released the album Some Girls, all right? Now, I don't know that everyone can name the songs off of individual Stones albums. Obviously, I'm a huge Stones fan, so with the big bands like this, then I'm going to concentrate on particular albums rather than go over the whole discography of someone. Otherwise, this show won't last very long at all. But as you all know, I have a great appreciation for the Stones. Even though I was a late fan to the party, I made up for it. What was going on in the world in '78? Well, the Stones had had their great career. They'd already put out Exile on Main Street, and then they kind of started dwindling in popularity. Other bands were taking over. This was like right on the fringe of disco. Bands were coming up like Kiss and Aerosmith, and they were just, the Stones didn't even tour in '77. I think part of it was because they had a little issue, just a little issue, with Keith Richards' arrest for heroin possession in Canada. That was a pretty big distraction for them. He was facing some serious long-term jail time. In the end, he was able to plead because they determined he wasn't too much of a risk, and he got sentenced to having to play a concert for charity. They actually did two concerts for charity for the Canadian Institute of the Blind. Anyway, so their popularity is going down. This is the first record out of all their, let's see, this was number 13, 17, which one was this? I guess in the United States, it was the 14th album in the United Kingdom and the 16th in the United States. They had released two studio albums in the United States. So, but it was the first one featuring Ronnie Wood full-time on an album. He had contributed to some of the songs before, but this was his first one as a full-time member. That really kind of brought them all together and cemented them as a band at that point. Moving forward, and they didn't use any session musicians. They all recorded their own parts on this record. Very few guest appearances. They had done a lot of guest appearances on records prior to that. They're coming off the record Black and Blue, which was not very well received, especially because of a billboard they put up in Southern California that ended up getting taken down for the album. But the first one where they were all recording together. They did have one notable guest appearance. A guy named Sugar Blue. He plays harmonica on Miss You. That's a pretty big deal. So they recorded this song. They actually recorded 50 new songs. They're recording in Paris. 50 new songs for this album, some of which would later end up on Emotional Rescue and Tattoo You. But they get this thing down and they get it ready to put out. Now, why is this album famous? Well, it's famous because of its record cover. Oh, I can show you something here. When they released the CDs, it was hard to get the CDs when they came out. You couldn't get the originals on CD very easily. So it was a big deal when they actually released them. This is the actual promotional advertisement for the collection that came out with the barcodes, and you can see they redid them all specifically to the way they came out on album. So the Some Girls CD was a little oversized, and it had the little die cut things that you could see, and you could pull it out. It looked like a little miniature record album, so that was pretty cool. Anyway, that record album, I mean, you can picture it. Maybe you've never even really looked at it closely, but you can picture it. It was die cut. This guy named Peter Corson designed it. He did the next 3 Stones albums, and it had the Stones faces on there. Originally, it did have the faces of famous women in Hollywood. It had Lucille Ball, Farrah Fawcett, Judy Garland, Raquel Welch, Marilyn Monroe, and then pretty much all those people said they were going to sue them and be like, you can't use our likeness on your album covers, So they quickly put out a new version that had their own faces again still, but kind of said under construction, and they kind of moved stuff around. The only person who stayed on there was George Harrison. His face is on there. It's not by name, but it's just their likeness. Anyway, so that album brings them back up to the top, puts them back on the map. It becomes their highest selling record in the United States, I believe. It's their only one, I believe, that was nominated for a Grammy. And some great songs on there. What are the songs on there? There's Miss You, which we already talked about, Beast of Burden, Respectable, and Shattered. So those all became big hits. They toured after that around the world. They did a mixture of big shows, and they did little shows too under different names. When that became the thing to do, to be a bigger band and show up to places under a different name. The earliest time I ever heard of that, on a side note, was I remember when Blue Oyster Cult played at Toad's Place in New Haven, and they used to call themselves Soft White Underbelly. Anyway, so this puts them back on the map. They start putting out some good music again, and just a great album. They did get into a little trouble, as I mentioned. The album Black and Blue didn't go over well with the advertisement on that. And then they had this issue with this album cover, and the title song had some issues with its lyrics. But overall, good record. How would I pick which one I would go with? It would have to be between Miss You and Beast of Burden. And I went back and forth. And really, Beast of Burden is probably my favorite song on that record. So that's what we're doing for Song of the Day today. It's Tuesday. Hope you enjoy your day. And tomorrow, Wednesday, we all know what I do on Wednesdays, so get yourself ready. But enjoy your day. It's Beast of Burden. Turn it up, enjoy, and you know what? We'll see you on the flip side.